All right. Welcome to this week's live office hours. Appreciate everybody joining us. I can finally talk about the thing I've been hinting at for a few weeks at this point, which I'm very excited about. I'll actually show it off here because it's very exciting. Let me share my screen for you guys. Just going to show this right here. Awesome. Okay. So we finally launched something that's, I think, really cool, right? Last year, we were watching the Black Friday Shopify dashboard, and it was like a global all of Shopify, which was like the craziest thing to see because you really just see the sheer like scale of what Shopify is doing. But we were like, you know what? That was really cool. Q4s are whole season, so it's not just Black Friday. And wouldn't it be nice to be able to see this kind of data for yourself as a seller? And so we launched something called the Q4 Performance Dashboard. So you actually get to see throughout all of Q4, how are you doing, right? And we'll actually highlight. So like these are the two Prime days on October 8th and 9th. How'd you do on those specific days? And we'll actually highlight the numbers for those. So if you want to know how you did on Black Friday or on Cyber Monday, you can kind of track your performance as a whole. And then we did something really cool. We're actually ranking people. So where do you rank in terms of Aura users? And like what percentage are you in? So this little baby account here at 10 or 12,000 in sales so far for Q4 is top 40%. Nothing crazy, but it's cool. And what's nice is you can actually download this, right? So click save image, download it. It's nice and pretty and formatted, so you get to share it on socials. And you can basically brag, right? I'm ready for the top 10 people to be like, haha, I'm top 10. It will happen, certainly. But we're super pumped for this. This was a fun project that we threw together that we may be doing every Q4 every year moving forward. Who knows? This might evolve and change over time. But it's a really fun thing. And you get to kind of see how you're doing, which is fun. We have thousands upon thousands of users, and now you can know how are you doing relative to everyone else. So kind of fun. And then just kind of switching gears here. We were just chatting before we started to record or go live, and we're just talking about how fast AI is moving. Every day there's some new thing. I just found out that I think I have it here actually. Where is it? I'm gonna have to search for it. Let's do iOS 18.2. So ChatGPT is basically getting integrated, here it is, into iOS or into Siri, which is so cool. Such a cool thing. But then something even cooler happened, which was Anthropic came out with something that I've been hacking on for a little bit. But nothing, it's like when I'm trying to like solve this problem for like getting a AI to use your computer, there's a lot of companies and projects working on this, but it's rarely very good. And it's like really hard to get working. You basically have to be a software engineer to pull it off, which I am not. I can tinker. That's about it. But Claude, or Anthropic, should I say, came out with 2 new models. So it updated to their Claude 3.5 Sonnet, which is incredible. And now it knows how to use your computer like really, really well. This dropped, I think yesterday, if I'm not mistaken. It was either yesterday or the day before. But you're essentially like, yeah, we can watch it happen here. So you're telling it what you want it to do, and then it just goes and does it and like moves your mouse, moves, types, all these different things. And to me, that's not super exciting because I've seen things like this before. But it's the reliability that's the interesting part. And it's the fact that some company or project is not taking GPT-4 and trying to hack it to make it work. This is the actual model company itself, which is very different. Like this is really deep stuff. And it's just cool, right? You guys hear me talk about having AI sourcing agents in the near future. This is like a very small version of this. Like it's going to be too slow right now. It's going to hit some bottlenecks, certainly, but this is like V1 of this. Imagine V2. I mean, I don't think enough sellers are considering what's here now. And I know I harp on this all the time, and I'm going to continue to do so. This stuff is not a year away. It's like a few weeks away, which is just dumbfounding to me. But a lot of the stuff you're having your VAs do as of tomorrow can be done using this. Like, you set it up, you give it the process you want it to do, you hit go and you walk away, or you go and do something else and you come back and it's done. They give a few different examples of use cases here. It's really amazing. And we're already starting to see people create different showcases of them basically building with this, which I think this is the biggest thing. When something new gets launched, it's very exciting, but a lot of time we tend to draw blanks and we're like, well, how would I use that? Start to look for people reviewing it or creating things with it. That's going to get your gears turning, because they might do something very similar to a process you already have that you can be like, oh, you know what? If it can do that, it could probably do the thing that I do. Let me go and try it. So it's right now technically in a beta. You can still use it. So it's not even like perfected yet, but it's still, from what I have seen, very, very interesting. It's a game changer in my opinion.
Yeah, and I think we always talk about like you said, just the rate at which these things are improving, and it's no longer just like a fun tool that you have access to. It can make a sizable difference in your day-to-day, especially as we get closer to the fully virtual and automated assistants like we've kind of talked about. But yeah, especially with it being able to kind of like take any task on your computer and learn it quickly and do it effectively, like that is rapidly making just things so much easier for folks and just giving more access to people in the space. And as we know, like having more time to do things like sourcing or things that you can't automate is only just going to help you continue to grow your business at an accelerated rate. So yeah, it's a really exciting time to just be in this space and see how it's evolving and start to think about where you can start to plug and play with these different tools to sort of simplify your day and workflows.
Yeah. And if you think about it, we've had automation for a decade plus, but I call that rigid automation. Like, it has to follow the exact same steps every single time. And if one thing's off, the whole thing breaks. Zapier is awesome, but like there's some things we've tried to automate at Aura that there's a big enough error rate that we can't do it. And it's like, that's kind of frustrating. We're now entering this world of intelligent automation, which is just AI. And so think about this, like all the things you're doing on your computer, right? Like being an Amazon seller is not a physical thing unless you're doing RA or you're doing your own prep. But let's take those out for a moment, because a lot more people are doing OA, wholesale, things of that nature. You're working on a computer, meaning you are taking inputs, doing something with them, and then creating outputs. You're manipulating information. AI can do that as well now, which is like, I mean, everything's about to change, which I'm so excited for. Because again, I think when you look at sellers, a lot of them have full-time jobs. They're not doing this full-time yet. That's the end goal they're trying to get to. So you have this limited capacity for getting things done, right? You might only have 4 hours a day to work on the business. But what happens when those 4 hours, if used correctly and strategically, could be the equivalent of 16 hours? Now, all of a sudden, the timeline for you to go full-time or hit your goals dramatically condenses and compresses. And so I think you're quickly going to get to a point where you as an individual will be able to outwork 4 or 5 full-time people just because the way you're working is changing. I mean, already I'm like, man, I want to start playing with this. I'll probably do it this weekend. I want to know, can I tell it to go to my Aura account and toggle on hyperdrive for a particular listing? I bet you it would be able to do that, right? I mean, just like, this is the hard part. It's a blank page problem. There's so much it can do that we struggle to know exactly how to use it, which is like both a good and a bad problem. We need to see examples to really get our gears churning. But man, I'm so excited. I'm such a Trekkie that I'm like, oh, we're here, man. Like, this is it. Like, I'm just going to be talking to my computer and having it do the tasks for me. And listen, I've played with a lot of beta versions. Like this guy right here is supposed to be able to do this kind of stuff. They just rolled out a version that can kind of do it, and I tested it. It was not stable. This is a different again, the fact that the model builder, so that the company who created the actual AI is the one building this, is a massive deal. And yeah, it's very exciting. It's super exciting. My mind is racing with ideas right now. Because basically anything on your computer it can now do. And one of the examples on Twitter, a guy I follow that experiments quite a bit, was mirroring his iPhone on his Mac. So the model is controlling his Mac, and then he's mirroring his iPhone on it. So now it can control his iPhone. What?
Yeah.
Like, what? I mean, come on, man. Like, imagine where you get to a point where whenever you create, let's say you work with a prep center, you have to submit your orders for what's inbound. You have your VA throw it into a Google Sheet, how they already would anyways. And then it just picks it up and just does that for you. You don't need Zapier Access and all these, APIs and all this different stuff. You just say, go do it. And it's like, cool, got you. And you go to bed. What? Yeah. Or even better, have your VA do that, right? Like, this is where things get fun. When people start to say like, oh, it's going to replace jobs. Yeah, yes, some for sure. But what we're not talking enough about is giving people on your team the option, the accessibility to this stuff, and saying, you guys go use it, man. Like, go 10 extra output and work less. That sounds great to me. If your VAs could go from spending $5,000 a week to 20 grand a week using this kind of stuff, that's a huge win. Heck, pay them all double. Why not? Right. So yeah, it's literally every day, at least this week, there's been some kind of release that has been mind blowing. Runway ML, they do video generation. They just demoed something where regular background, like I have back here, me talking, make it Pixar. And the mouth movement is the thing to pick out when you're looking at AI videos. That is the hardest thing to do. And it is perfect.
That's crazy.
From a marketing standpoint, man, the amount of things we could create, and now all the cool ideas we have that would cost so much to hire somebody to do for us, maybe we could just do ourselves. And we go from not doing it to now we can do it. And it comes down to if we want to. So a lot of things. Let's see, Joshua, can you repeat what you just said about mirroring? Yeah. So basically, there is a way to mirror your screen from your phone onto a Mac. And so what the guy's doing, and actually here, I'll pull it back up and show you guys, because it's a really, really cool use case here. Anthropic. Sorry, I search for it again. Use computer.
And I think it's going to make the biggest impact on things that are just repeated processes that just take time and are so tedious. If you can teach it to do that, it's going to do it much quicker. And that's just going to immediately free up a lot of time. And that way you don't have to worry about teaching it too many complex things to start. If you're a little apprehensive about just letting it fully take over huge portions of your activities or workflows, but that's a great way to kind of start, free up a lot of time. And then as you gain more confidence in how it's set up and how it's operating, then you can continue to kind of send more tasks or processes that way and continue to free up more of your time.
Yeah. So here's what we're talking about. So he's got his iPhone mirroring on his Mac, and then the AI is controlling his Mac. But because it's mirroring the iPhone, it can technically control the iPhone. You just have to prompt it correctly.
Yeah.
Which, this is where technology gets really fun. When things start to overlap, it's like, okay, well, it doesn't run on my phone. Yeah, but if you have some things you need to run on your phone to automate, maybe you can. And this is what's cool about what's happening is like, this is not held behind academic walls and gates. It got released. Everybody has access to it. Go build and have fun. And everybody wants to share what they're building for bragging rights, just to be like, I was the first one to do X, Y, or Z, or look how I did this. Which means they basically show you exactly how to do what they're doing, which is so fun. Like there's so much transparency happening in the AI space that, you can go and just find an awesome example and just copy it. Like I think more people should steal things. I talked about this on Chris Grant's podcast this past Monday when we recorded it, is like, if you go find amazing things and you just replicate them, nope, you're not getting an F on your homework. Nobody's checking. And like, this is how the world actually works. Don't try to recreate the wheel here. Just find what works, start there, which makes you 80% of the way there. And then it's up to your experience and know how to take it to the last 20%. And so it's fun. A lot of this, the cool stuff I build, I had an idea from somebody else that I was like, let me try to build my version of it, or heck, I'll just rip it and use it because it works. Why not? So it's really cool. You know, it's just, again, we're still early days. I don't want to overpromise here. I mean, I'm not the one who built it, so it doesn't matter, but like, it's not going to be perfect. And like, there's already some cases where people are like, oh, it's super slow. Yes. But you have to split out, is this technically possible? And is this non-technically possible? The non-technically possible are the hard things that will take a very long time to happen. The fact that whenever something becomes technically possible, it doesn't matter how slow it is, how perfect it is. The fact that it is technically possible is the meaningful catalyst, because if it's useful enough, it will get faster and the accuracy will go up. And so think about, you know, another 4 weeks, we'll have a brand new state-of-the-art model that will be controlling your computer, and the things it can't do today, we'll be able to do in 4 weeks. Right. So you really have to extrapolate how fast are things changing. And just because it can't do it today doesn't mean it can't do it tomorrow. And even on the coding front, a lot of people use Claude 3.5, the old version. And they're like, yeah, there's some things you just couldn't do. And then they upgraded to the new version of 3.5. They're like, it does it perfectly now. That's cool. Like, I did nothing and it just got better. And like, this is, you can count on this technology just getting better, more powerful and cheaper over time. And to me, that's an incredible thing. So very pumped.
Yeah. Yeah, definitely. It'll be interesting to see as AI becomes more powerful, like the specific tools that it will lead to. Obviously right now it's like, it just takes over your computer as a whole and you can teach it anything. But as the general power of AI continues to grow in strength, it'll be interesting how people then kind of start to segment it into its own programs, platforms, products, and things like that.
Yeah, there's already an early stage company I follow. They're basically trying to build an AI first computer. Yeah, and they just put out a call for a hackathon in, it was either New York or San Francisco, I think this weekend. And they're like, hey, basically come build AI first applications on top of an AI first operating system. Like that could change. Like literally the computers we use, that paradigm could change, which is like, we can't really fully comprehend that, but people are working on this. This is what's so fun. The things you could not do a year ago as an individual, you now can. I mean, you have a thought partner. When you're struggling as a business owner to solve a particular problem, write it out, throw it into ChatGPT, throw it into Claude, and just be like, hey, help me work through this. Maybe it can. And I've literally done that. You know, I'm a big fan of the concept of leverage. So I took all my notes on leverage, threw it into Claude and said, hey, you're my leverage coach. I want to be able to give you a problem, a task, a project. And I want you to make recommendations on different forms, different types of leverage that I can apply to solve this task, problem, project. And it was pretty good. Yeah. And it took me like 2 minutes, you know, granted I already had the notes, but heck, I can use Perplexity and be like, brain dump me everything you can find about leverage, throw it in there. I mean, think about that as a concept, right? Like if you're a first-time business owner, go find the top books for business owners that everybody talks about, have ChatGPT create you a summary, throw all those summaries into a massive prompt in Claude. And then all you have to do is say, I want to be able to give you a question or a problem or something along those lines. And then you make a recommendation or help me solve that based on all this amazing knowledge and education. And it just does. And and it costs you nothing. It might cost you a fraction of a penny for each run. That's cool, man. That's like, what? Like learning new things. Yeah, I'm geeked, man. My Trekkie bones are on fire right now. I'm energized. So let's see, Joshua, how is Claude different from ChatGPT? Never heard of it. So Claude is a different AI model. So it's a large language model. It's created by Anthropic. So OpenAI created ChatGPT, and their models are GPT 3.5, GPT 4, GPT 4.0, and now O1 preview. Anthropic has created their version of an LLM called Claude, and there's different variations of Claude. Anthropic is the biggest competitor to OpenAI. I tend to prefer Claude for written-based things. ChatGPT has definitely gotten better with the O1 preview model for writing, but I really like them both just in different cases, which is really fun. And actually, Perplexity just announced, again, so many announcements, right? Perplexity announced reasoning in their searches. So if you say, like, the example they gave, and I tested this myself, get every shareholder memo that Bezos sent for each year and summarize it and distill it down into a single theme. And it took it a minute, but it went through every single one and it was reasoning through it. It was like, okay, cool. This is a massive thing. I need to use reasoning for that. And it worked through it. So even something like Perplexity is still getting better. You're like, how is that going to get better outside of just a new model that you can use with it? And they're still innovating. I mean, I think we've really just barely scratched the surface here, but I think business owners have probably, and really Amazon sellers. I mean, I'll be this blunt. I think Amazon sellers have one of the biggest opportunities here to utilize this to operate at a 10x level, and do incredibly well. It's going to speed you up. It's going to automate a bunch of stuff. It's going to help you solve problems that felt insurmountable. I think we'll start to see AI tools for things like all these Section 3s. You got to respond to those. Well, could it just take in the input of the Section 3 deactivation and then come back with a response that's known to work really well and with documentation that it found, or tells you, hey, this is the documentation you need to really overcome this particular one. Go grab those. I'll formulate the response text for you. Let's put those two things together, ship it, and let's move on. Yeah, absolutely. So all this knowledge that we create and generate as sellers, I think we'll start to turn that knowledge into tools, which is whole different paradigm. So
yeah, and I think in nature, being an Amazon seller, there are a lot of processes that can be automated and kind of segued one way or the other. So I think you're right that being an Amazon seller in this specific space with AI just developing so quickly, it does help make an immediate impact compared to other industries where there are more complex, where a human element may be more involved or required. I mean, so much of being an Amazon seller is just delegating time on certain tasks, because so many tasks take so much time. So if you can automate any of them and automate them effectively, it really just not only opens up you for more time, but helps you grow exponentially as well.
Yeah. Well, now you don't need to wait for a developer to build an AI solution for you. So like I mentioned previously, the Smart Scout AI listing generator, I think that's a great idea. The next version of that, in my opinion, is it just watches your listings as you jump on them and then just self-optimizes. Well, now in theory, the hybrid of that is you have this Claude use computer version, basically use the software for you, right? Like that's where I think a lot of people might get stuck, is it's this kind of binary, it is AI or it's not AI. But what happens when you have AI use non-AI tools? like that's cool, man. So very exciting. I know I'm kind of geeking out here, but again, this open office hours, so there's really no format here. Any questions you guys have related to anything, it could be Aura related, repricing, selling, definitely AI. Happy to dive deep into any of those things, but I'm just kind of geeking out because I think it's kind of vindication for me, because I've been saying this for the past year, and seeing these things come out kind of in the timeline I've been talking about is fun for me, because I'm like, haha, I told you. Like I was right. I'm not crazy. I'm just 10% crazy, but that's a good amount. So
just the right amount. Just the right
amount. You gotta be a little crazy being a founder. That's a fact. That's well known. But yeah, it's gonna be fun. Q4, we're in it now. We've been talking about that for a hot minute. I'm curious how everybody's kind of not necessarily gearing up, although I'm seeing a lot of people on Twitter still kind of ramping up. And so I think a lot of people are kind of getting their gears in motion much faster now. This is a great question here from Chris. Do you recommend any changes to our Aura settings for Q4? So I approach this very differently. In previous years prior to Maven, I would say yes. And here's kind of how you should do it. With Maven, though, you don't really need to. And I talk about this. I talked about this on Jimmy Smith's podcast and then Chris Grant's podcast, which I think is coming out today, if not tomorrow, and went really in depth on this. If you think about what happens during Q4, you have a massive increase in demand, right? You definitely have an increase in supply side as well, but it's mainly on the demand side. And so you want to think about what percentage of the opportunity are you claiming? Because a lot of sellers will sell out really fast and be like, haha, I won. I didn't lose any inventory getting stale. And while I'd rather you do that than have so much left over, really what you should be aiming for, because it's hard to do one or the other, somewhere in between, right? You don't really want to run out too fast, but you don't want to have so much left over going into Q1 that you now have to deal with long-term storage fees, things of that nature, and your capital being tied up. So really what you want is somewhere in between that spectrum, which is like you have a little bit left over after Q4. Because I think a lot of sellers, I kind of go to like, it's almost a scarcity mindset. It's like, if I have to make the most out of this, but in trying to do that, you actually get less out of it. And so you end up massively jacking up your velocity, which is not bad. But by selling out, you maybe only got 40 to 60% of the opportunity that you could have. And so what's nice about Maven is we're kind of metering that velocity. We're keeping that velocity healthy as it's just organically going to go up, but we're not driving into it and avoiding the profitability and all these things, right? So Maven can actually help you or keep you from selling out too fast, which is a good thing going into Q4. And what's nice is your sales, your prices should be going up, right? So Maven, because we have the dynamic auto max and the optimal price calculations happening in real time every time we get a price update, there's nothing for you to do. If the price can go up 40% and it does, you didn't have to think about it. It just did it for you, which is awesome. Now, I kind of like to frame it this way too. That's not 100% of what you should do though, right? And we talk about this a lot, like the life cycle of a listing. This is still true for Q4. It's just in a wider, it's a longer time horizon, right? So whereas normally you want to say, okay, I'm going to come in conservative, and then after 4 weeks, I want to start to liquidate. That's fine. Here, you want to do it a little bit lengthier, right? You want to take a little bit more time because, again, you don't want to run out of stock. And so, going into like prime Q4, like really like Black Friday, Cyber Monday, all that stuff, you want to stay using that Maven to get the most out of it. As we're starting to fall off of Q4, when things start to die down, that's when I would switch to that level 2, which would be targeting the buy box. Because now we want to start to move things a little bit faster. Now what we're doing is we're saying velocity is starting or the demand is starting to decrease. I need to get more of it to kind of balance myself back out. That's when I'll go to that buy box targeting strategy. And we have documentation on all this as well. If you go to help.goaura.com and just search for 3 core strategies, there's a doc that covers all 3 of these. And then like definitely going into like January, that's when I would start to liquidate. If not right before January, I would start to really liquidate things. But if you approach it that way, I think you're in a good position. We really built Maven with this in mind, right? Because every year this question would come up, hey, what settings do I change? What strategies do I need to use? And in an ideal case, it's nothing. Like the system can handle that for you, and that's how it should be done. And so we built Maven with that in mind. So a lot of that stuff is kind of handled for you, which is fantastic. But Casey, anything you want to add on to that?
No, I think you pretty much covered everything there, Dylan. I think that's what's great to kind of remind yourself of, is that Maven is able to take in all these complexities at once. It's obviously designed for finding that optimal price, which is a balance of that sales velocity and profit margin, but it does lean towards the profit margin side of that logic as opposed to sales velocity. So in Q4, when the demand goes up and that sales velocity in general is going to be much higher on a listing, Maven is going to take that into account in addition to the competitive landscape of the listing at the same time. So if you're maybe one of typically typically 3 or 4 sellers on a listing, and on Q4 there's now 10 sellers on that listing. Even with the sales velocity picking up, Maven is still able to analyze all of those different scenarios and data points and figures and determine what that best price is. And then, yes, if you haven't already, I definitely recommend checking out that 3 core strategies article. Finn just published that over the last couple weeks, and that does really break down the essentially setup that you should really, or workflow, if you will, for about 80 to 85% of your inventory. I would say you could just apply these basic principles to, starting with Maven when it's a new item in stock. When you need to get a little bit more aggressive, go to the buy box. And then obviously when you need to really pick up that velocity and liquidate, go to that liquidation strategy. And that does kind of boil into Josh's question right under Chris's here, where if you're not winning the buy box using Maven, just a reminder that Maven's not specifically designed to win the buy box. Historically on Amazon, the main goal should have just been to win the buy box, maintain it. That's where all the sales come in. But with Amazon being such a saturated seller market now, there are so many sellers on certain listings, which creates downward pressure on that buy box. So that optimal price, what we found, is typically a few dollars above the current buy box winning price. So if you are on Maven not winning the buy box, you want to adjust to that buy box targeting strategy. The pre-configured settings in the buy box targeting strategy in your account, if you go to build one, those are our best recommendations for targeting and winning the buy box. The one exception there is going to be the min and max price section. Always recommend making sure that mins and maxes are in line with your expectations, so you don't sell an item too low, or is obviously permitted to reprice anywhere within your set min and max range. But if you are primarily focused on sales velocity and targeting the buy box, you want to use that buy box targeting strategy over Maven.
Yeah. And Joshua, I just sent and posted the link to that help desk article as well in the comments, so you should be able to see that. And this is a good one here. I feel like selling out too fast is really only an issue for private label sellers. Not necessarily. Again, you kind of have to think about this from 2 different perspectives. If the 2 options are sell out too fast or don't sell at all, selling out too fast is better. Right? But again, I want you to start thinking through the lens of what percentage of the opportunity of Q4 am I gaining? Because when you do sell out too fast, you now don't have the option of selling at a higher price. There's a balance there though, right? And that's what I'm trying to, it's a nuanced thing, which is kind of hard to get across. But like, if you sell out prior to like Black Friday or Cyber Monday, when your prices could have been 20% higher, you missed out on that opportunity. You know what I'm saying? So every time you don't have that inventory, you can't sell it, right? So there's also a problem of not being able to replan, right? So if the opportunity there, as a good example here, is 1,000 units, and let's just call it a month, and you sold 200 units, very profitably. That's awesome. But now what you can't do is you can't replace that inventory. So if the prices go up by 20%, you don't get to take part in that opportunity, and you can't replan during peak COVID. Good Lord, that's a flashback. PTSD. Peak Q4, right? Either your manufacturer doesn't have enough stock, your suppliers will run dry, or just logistically you can't get it shipped in and processed fast enough. I ran into this when I was doing a wholesale. Going into Q4, I had an awesome direct-to-brand account with a toy company. I ordered a few thousand units. They were getting checked in batches of 100. I kid you not. They would get checked in. I would refresh Seller Central. 10 minutes later, all 100 would be gone. They were getting sold out that fast. So I contact my brand. I'm like, the opportunity here is much larger than I thought. I need 10,000 units. Tough. We can't even get it from the manufacturer until February. So again, is it good that I sold out and didn't have anything left over? Of course it was. But had I been actively repricing, especially repricing up using something like Maven, I could have made a lot more money, at least on the inventory that I was able to purchase. That's the opportunity. So, getting 60% of an opportunity is better than 0, but I don't want you to get 60. I want you to get 80 to 100% of that opportunity. And that comes from a few different perspectives. One, making sure you're getting the best price you can, the highest price you can, during this peak demand season, as well as having enough inventory to be able to facilitate that. That's what I'm trying to get across. So it's not that it's bad, but it's possibly not enough for what you could get. And I want Q4 to be insanely awesome for every single user. And it just requires you to think a little bit differently. So a lot of what we do when we're getting into this kind of education mode is getting you to think slightly different than what is being kind of taught generally. Because a lot of the Amazon education stuff is here's how to source and all the tactics. I don't care about the tactics. I want the frameworks. How do you make decisions? How are you thinking about certain things? Because a lot of people go into Q4 and just go feed the beast, just load it up. Yeah, of course, but that's not 100% of it. And if you're thinking through this lens of what percentage of the opportunity am I claiming, it will help you narrow your focus into what really matters in a holistic way. I'm getting like super meta on it. I know I'm like trying to like wrap my head around how to, it's like some things just make sense in my ADHD brain or my ADD brain. And it's hard to convert to language sometimes, but hopefully that made sense.
No, you're making sense. And I think the main way to look at it in like very simple terms is if you sell less at a higher price point, you're going to make more money. And it's just about finding what that price point is and then having the correct sales velocity and the inventory to support that. I think I've made the silly comparison before where growing up, I would play sports video games and you could run your franchise and you could price concessions and see how concessions performed. And I think the sweet spot for hot dogs was like $6 because it was like you would sell a little bit less, but you would make more money than if you were selling hot dogs at $4. So that's my very video
Maven's
game.
Basically helping you get $6 for your hot dogs is what we're saying.
Exactly. But yeah, try to find that sweet spot. And that's what's great about Maven it does find that price where you will get more margin at an ideal sales velocity. Yeah. And then it's just about making sure you're set up for success on the inventory side.
And the upside is that because there's so much increase in demand, which basically you could call velocity, it doesn't decrease your velocity. Right. So it's like, man, imagine being able to like, if you sold last year and went through that Q4, what if all your prices could have been 20 to 30% higher and you still moved the same inventory. Maybe you moved it slightly slower, but at that higher of a profit margin, that's dollars in your pocket. That's a meaningful change. So it's just something to kind of ruminate and think about. I know we get kind of academic here a lot of times, but this is kind of how we think. Is again, I want you to shift your perspective a bit.
Yeah, like chasing the buy box is great, but especially Q4 downward pressure on that buy box that we always talk about, that's going to be greater than it is at any other point in the year. So that's where Maven is going to be super effective. And then, as you mentioned, maybe last couple of weeks of December, as people have probably finished their Christmas shopping, getting towards maybe more of that buy box targeting, and then eventually liquidating as you get into the January period to avoid, longer storage fees, things of that nature.
Well, and going back to my toy example, I wasn't repricing. So I was owning the buy box like, oh, I'm crushing it, man. I'm owning this thing. Yeah, the next highest guy was like $12 higher. But because I wasn't repricing, I couldn't reprice up. So I still would have sold the same amount at a much higher profitability. And I just didn't, and I was a novice, I didn't know any better, so again, it's like, buy box percentage went to 100%, but who cares? I would have taken 40% buy box ownership percentage or heck, 25% if I could have got $12 more in my pocket for every single unit I sold, and I sold thousands. That's a vacation right there. That's a nice vacation.
Yeah.
So it's just a different way. And that's the thing about Amazon. I think I talked when I was talking with Chris Grant, we were talking about this, is like, it might've been offline, but a lot of the recommendations and advice is very simplistic. Why? Well, because it makes a better headline is the reality. It sounds piffy and it sounds nice. And listen, I do that sometimes too, to get my point across because it's memorable. But the reality of it is there is nuance to what we do. And we've had this happen on these sessions where somebody said, hey, I need your advice on X. I'm like, I can't really give you advice outside of the pithy answer without knowing more details about your scenario to give you really accurate advice of what you and your scenario should do. And I think if you can wrap your head around that and operate from that perspective, I think you'll make better decisions. you kind of need to use first principles here. I think the go-to piffy stuff gets you pretty far. Don't get me wrong. But if you're really trying to scale, you need to be using first principles and asking, okay, well, I'm struggling with this. Ask why 5 times, get to the root of it, and then solve that problem. That's using first principles. That's a good thing there. Basically the Socratic method, it's just like ask why 5 times. You keep getting suppressed. Okay, why? Eventually you get the answer and you fix the problem. It's just going to allow you to make smarter decisions for yourself, which I think is important.
Definitely.
Stila Wayne, love the quarter in review snippet that you all added to our dashboard. Love that you love it. It was kind of a fun project for us. Certainly, we had the idea and we're just like, this would be so sick. We're like, let's build it. So glad you like it. That's awesome to hear. It is exclusive to Aura users. So if you're not an Aura user, you should be, not just for the Q4 repricing and all that great stuff in our team, but for this cool tracker here. So LaWayne, I'm curious what your rank is, man. What are you in top 20%? Where are you top 10? I think somebody in the comments earlier, got a top 10 tenor chiming in here. Love it, Alan. That's great. And feel free to, you can save the image. We actually pre-render an image for you that works on all the social media channels. It would mean a lot to us if you shared that socially. We really want to turn this into a game. And a fun little challenge. So definitely share how you're doing, how you're progressing, because it's going to change hour by hour, right? We're updating it all the time. And so, you might be top 40%, LaWayne, top 40%. Tomorrow you might be top 20%, right? Who knows? It's especially going to be fun to see how much it changes on Black Friday and Cyber Monday, because that's when you're going to have a huge swing in sales. And so that's going to be crazy. See Prince top 35%, 100% DVDs. How is this a business? LOL. I don't know how you do media. I don't, I'm more power to you. You're stronger than me. I tried used books and I hated it so much. Will do post to socials. Love it. Thank you for doing that. Prince, share yours on socials too. We want to see these, you know what I mean? Like we want to see these out in the wild. And we want to see how you're progressing, how you're doing. We'll most likely going into January, share probably a blog post, maybe a video of just here's the global data that we saw as a company. How much revenue did our users do in Q4 on Cyber Monday, on Black Friday? How many price updates did we make? That's going to be huge because it's going to be millions, like tens, if not hundreds of millions of price changes we'll make just in Q4. Actually guaranteed. Yeah, no, it'll be hundreds of millions, most likely. See Joshua, mine is not available. Okay. So Joshua, if you go, if you're logged into your account on the left-hand nav, so in the nav menu items, you'll see quarter in review. Click on that and that should bring it up for you. Everybody has access to it. It's 100% free to everyone. We're not gating it on tier or anything like that. Every single user gets one. Let me know in the comments if you see it. And if not, we'll troubleshoot. Oh, there you go. You got it. Oh, see, top 25%. See, you couldn't find it. You're just trying to be humble about it. I see how it is. Hey, man, top quarter percentile. This is a big deal. That's awesome. That's good to hear. See, this makes it fun, right? It's already kind of a game in a lot of ways, but we're hoping to kind of standardize that and make it a little bit more fun. So it wasn't refreshing. Haha. Yeah. That's funny. I would love to get any feedback you guys have on the quarter in review, the Q4 dashboard as well. This is the first year we're doing it. We're already kind of talking about what if this is something that just goes live at October 1st every year. And it's just something super cool like that. We maybe change it up. See, Chris, this is what we wanted. Top 80%. I got work to do. Exactly. This is the point. It gives you a reference point that if you're crushing it, you can kind of enjoy that, right? If you're ranked number one, because there is a ranked number one user, you can kind of be like, all right, I'm doing pretty good. But if you're struggling, this kind of holds you accountable. It's like, all right, let's triple down here. We're gamifying it. And so it's less about, am I just crushing it? And more like, man, I wonder if I could do a little bit better this year and kind of pushing towards that. So see, so exciting and fun. Love it. Thank you. Thank you. I actually just saw Big C on Twitter post it. I'm slacking big time. I love it. Love it. It's good stuff. This is what we were hoping for. We were very excited about it. So See, these office hours are great. Definitely will tune into more. Appreciate that. Yeah, we do this every Wednesday from 2 to 3 p.m. EST. Again, there's no format here. We just kind of kick it off with something, whether that's a news related or, if Casey lets me, I'll talk about AI for a little while. And it's really, this session is us coming to you and saying, how can we help? Whether that's hyping you up, love doing that too, like we're doing right now, getting feedback, feature requests, helping you, if you're just like, I can't wrap my mind around this one feature in Aura, we'll screen share and geek out with you, all that good stuff. So you got to lock in. See, this is the theme, right? Now everybody's like, well, hold on. I got to do a little bit better now. I dig it. Sorry, Casey, what were you going to say?
No, I was just going to kind of repeat what you said. Yeah, if there's any, specific things in your account, we can pull up our own account, kind of go through how you can create specific strategies. If you have general concept questions, how should I approach this scenario? Definitely feel free to just hit the comments, and we're happy to help. And then if you do miss office hours, these are all also recorded. If you go to the same page where you jumped into the live call, their previous sessions are laid out there as well. And then additionally, you can always chat with us right now. Finn's running chat. Typically, it's me running chat outside of office hours. So if you do need any of that kind of additional hand-holding or assistance there, never hesitate to reach out. We're fully a human team. You may get a couple automated responses when you first chat in, but if you hit talk to a person, you're always going to end up talking to someone. So you won't be shunned with just automated responses. Definitely feel free to come and hit us up for any assistance you need.
Yeah, definitely. So we got about, how much we got? 14 minutes? 14 minutes? Yeah. Can't see her today. Any questions you guys have, we're happy to dive into anything. Share your numbers too. Definitely my biggest ask of this session is share your dashboard. And yes, you can download it so it looks very beautiful. You don't have to screenshot it or anything like that. You can also do it on your phone. So if you're using Aura on your phone, this whole thing is optimized for your phone. You can even download it from your phone to your phone, which is kind of cool. So, but yeah, my only ask is that you share that socially. I think, listen, we're a big community. This whole industry is community driven. And the more we can lean on each other and the more we can, share things and how, your wins, your losses, the vulnerability, everything. I think it just strengthens that community, which is really exciting. So definitely a big ask from me, but that would be very awesome. And lock in, like Joshua said, lock in. Listen, October is almost done, right? Halloween's next week?
Yeah, it came up fast. I feel like October and September just kind of evaporated before our eyes, but that's how it is sometimes.
1000%. See, Chris, do you have a link for app for iPhone? So for clarification, we don't have a downloadable mobile app. So we have what's called a PWA, a progressive web app. All that means is you log in on your browser into Aura, and then you save that as a bookmark on your home screen. So if you go to help.goaura.com and then search for mobile, we'll show you exactly how to do that on iPhone and Android, but it basically works the same. So see if I can pull it up here because I have it on my phone. So you'll still have an awesome little app icon. And then this is a live account. So everything works here. So actually, I'll show you the Q4 dashboard in mobile. So that's the mobile view, which is awesome. And then again, that save image, I can do that and then share it. And it's really well designed, all that good stuff. Tasso and our team did an incredible job with that. But we made it so that it's easy to be shared. You don't have to take screenshots or anything like that. We'll make it super, super nice. See, Prince, can Aura see if an inactive listing is inactive because of a high pricing error? Just wondering if there will ever be possibility of this being fixed automatically somehow in the future. Not yet. That gets really kind of tough. I also would like that to be a feature in the near future where we could just be like, oh, it got made inactive. Let's make it active. That is on my wish list for Christmas. I don't think that's going to change unless the API itself changes, but hey, here's hoping. But as it currently stands, we're not able to see that it was made inactive for that reason and do anything with it when it's inactive.
Yeah. Typically, Prince, when you get a listing deactivated, it is typically tied to a high pricing error. For those of you that don't know, Aura is blind to any min and max prices set in other platforms. That does include Seller Central. So what I always recommend to folks is lining up the figures that you have set in Seller Central with what is set in Aura, but more ideally, I would recommend removing any max prices set in Amazon. That way, there is sometimes, Amazon Web Services will crash and things like that, which does lead to a slight delay in Amazon's API. Unfortunately, there's nothing we can do about that. So in various cases, I do recommend still having a min price set in Seller Central just to prevent something from selling below a certain price. Typically, when things sell below a min set in Aura, that's going to be because that Amazon doesn't send us the info in time, so it's live. We're not able to correct you within that set range. But if you do remove those max prices in Seller Central, the only way a listing would be deactivated is if it's a violation of their fair price policy, which in that case, that just means the price is too high for that listing, but that'll prevent any high pricing errors for you moving forward.
Yep. There's some things I wish we could just do easily. It's funny. I had a user email me. We're going back and forth on something. And we were just kind of joking about the issues of being a seller. And I was like, yeah, I kind of don't miss those. But, I made a joke that was like, I thought when I became a developer that we wouldn't have those issues. And it turns out we do. They're just different. So we're all in the same boat is my point. There are things that just should be easy that really just aren't. But yeah, here's to hoping again. So
yeah. When you play in Amazon's sandbox, you have to play by their rules, unfortunately. So
yep, absolutely. They tell us what toys we can play with and which ones we can't. And you don't want to be grounded.
Yeah.
Nice. So we've got about 9-ish minutes here. So we'll hang out. Any last minute questions? Anybody has anything you want us to dive deep into? We're happy to do so. And then we'll call it a day.
As always, if anybody has any movie recommendations, I'm always looking for those. We went through a dead period in movie theaters over the last couple months where there weren't many good movies coming out, but things are finally picking back up. If anyone's a Saturday Night Live fan out there, I recommend the movie Saturday Night. It's all about the first night that they did Saturday Night Live, all about getting that show up and off the ground, which is fun to see some actors portray some of the famous comedians that used to be there. But yeah, if you ever want to chat about movies, feel free to come into chat. I'll be happy to do that with you as well.
Our chat is not just for solving problems. Sometimes we're just here to chat. You want to come in and vent? We got you, man. Don't worry about it. See, LaWayne, I just saw that you posted and I reshared it on the Aura Twitter, so I appreciate that. I did start to watch The Substance, and then my wife and son got back home from the pumpkin patch, and I had to turn it off. They don't let me watch scary movies, but yeah. She's gone this weekend, so she's like, "You're going to sleep, play video games, and watch scary movies." It's like in that order, yes. So, LaWayne, we'll definitely give you a follow here. Hold on one second. Boom, done. See, Denny, book recommendations. Ooh. Yeah, Chris Grant asked me this question. I drew a blank. Usually I have like 13 wrapped up. Life's been hectic, so I haven't been reading as much lately. I really recommend Life 3.0 from an AI perspective. That's actually a really good book that will help kind of set the tone for a lot of things. The first opening chapter is actually really interesting. He basically tells a story of how things could play out, which is really fun. I think that's a really good book. And then what else have I been reading? Been reading a lot more history. I hit my Winston Churchill phase. Nice. So I'm now just obsessed with Winston Churchill. So reading a bunch of his biographies. And then one of my favorite that I initially started with actually was No More Champagne. It is a biography on Winston Churchill through his personal finances, which is so niche, but it's so cool because you don't realize like he actually struggled with money most of his life and like was a trust fund kid. Like it walks through all these different things of him like bartering with his cigar maker, his wine maker, and all these different things. It's crazy, but it's a really good background on Winston, and then or Sir Winston, should I say? And I'm a big James Bond fan. So Ian Fleming, I've been diving into his biographies as well to learn more about the man behind the books. That's actually really, really cool too. He's got a really cool, interesting history. So that's what I've been doing a lot more lately is reading history. I feel like once you start reading a ton of business books and things like that, you get to a point where you pick up the next one and it's the same information you read 4 books ago, just regurgitated in a different light. So I tend to not find new nuggets of wisdom in a lot of the books. So I've been going back to history lately. Oh yeah, Dan Martell. I will say, yeah, Buy Back Your Time by Dan Martell was a great book. I think pretty easy, fast read too. I love his stuff, to be honest. I know he's got like SAS Academy and all these different things that I've actually looked into. But yeah, he's got some good stuff. I like the fact that he's framework and model oriented, which makes it easier to apply those things. You know, he's got the ladder analogy for hiring, things of that nature, which is really nice.
Definitely.
See, I've been reading Your Next 5 Moves, Master the Art of Business Strategy. Okay, you know, that one's been on my list, and I couldn't tell if it was actually worth reading, but if you're saying it's a great book, I'll definitely give that one a shot. Nice. David something bet, I forget. He runs like an insurance company, but very vocal guy. But I'll have to give that one a shot. But yeah, more on the history side. What about you, Casey?
Yeah, I've been trying to reestablish the hobby of reading. I recently was on vacation. I started Stephen King released like a fantasy novel at the beginning of this year. I've read Misery before, and I really like Stephen King's like writing style. So that's been really fun to read. I'm only a couple hundred pages in. It's only like 550 pages, but that's been fun for me. And yeah, I mean, as I mentioned, big TV show and movie guy. Dylan, if you're getting into Winston Churchill, The Darkest Hour. Gary
I watch it every night to fall asleep.
I was going to say, you've probably seen that if you're interested.
It's so good.
Yeah, that's a great one. And Gary Oldman supposedly is retiring soon, but one of the better actors of his time. But yeah. And Prince, yes. And Nora, I see you saw that. That's been on my list. That comes out soon. And yeah, Saturday night, my girlfriend loves romance movies. We saw We Live in Time with Andrew Garfield and Florence Pugh recently. Great movie as well. Nice. But yeah, just trying to flush out some more books. There's Bill Simmons' Book of Basketball, which is just like the whole history of the NBA from like 2010 all the way to the beginning, which being a sports guy is fun to kind of learn a little bit more about some of the stars before my time. So kind of learning more about the eras of basketball. But yeah, if anyone has I like kind of secret agent books, Mitch Rapp series. If you've ever read those are fun. But yeah, I've started to kind of lean more towards like the James Bond types books. So I've been thinking
about to say you should read
James
the novels. Yeah, you should read those. And if you have not read Sherlock Holmes, I'm a big Sherlockian. Mm-hmm. They're fantastic. They're so wonderful. You have to read those too. They're so good. Let's see. I meant to say, I start every year. I try to keep reading It by Stephen King, and it's just a monster. Every October, I'm like, let's do it, and I'm like, oh my gosh, there's no way it's gonna take me like 6 months to read that thing. Realistically, it's massive. Yeah,
it's a big one.
See, Kyle, using GoToLister, which has my cost in it, it looks like I have to export from GoTo, then convert to Aura in order to get my cost so Aura can start playing. Is that correct? That is correct. One thing I will say, if that is a big task for you, you can actually just send us via live chat the export unformatted, and we can do a lot of that stuff for you. So don't feel like you have to do it yourself, especially if you're just getting set up. We can do a lot of that stuff for you very, very easily.
And Kyle, I did just post as well. We do have a help doc around using our uploads feature. So I actually recently published a video in there. The front half is going to be how to kind of export a pre-formatted file for you. So then you can kind of repurpose your data into that format and upload it into Aura. I believe that video is about 5.5 minutes long, but the last 2 minutes is going to be troubleshooting tips as well. So if you have errors or everything doesn't quite update properly, I kind of go through the top 5 or 6 most common errors there. So definitely check out there. But yeah, if you upload it and you're getting errors or it's not going through, definitely feel free to ping us. Happy to look at that file. I do recommend trying to upload it first, because then it's easier. We can download that specific file that you already uploaded and work with that. But like I said, if you run errors or see things aren't updating properly, definitely feel free to ping us. We'll be sure that's set properly for you.
Yeah. Ken, love this. Finn is awesome. Aura is amazing. You're awesome. You're amazing. I appreciate that. Casey will go and tell Finn right after this that you said that. So that'll make his week for sure.
Yeah.
Awesome. So we'll go ahead and in there. Appreciate everybody making the time to come hang out with us. Definitely do that next week. Again, it's every Wednesday from 2 to 3 p.m. EST. We do these live office hours no format, just answering questions, geeking out with you guys, having fun. And again, my only ask from this session is please download and share your quarter in review on socials. Let other people know how you're doing. Hold yourself accountable. Where you at? Heck, share it in support with us. We're happy to geek out with you and have some fun and hype you up too. But with that, we'll let everybody get back to the rest of your week. Thank you.
Adios, folks.